Hello, ladies. I'm on here a little bit early tonight just to see if our comments are working. So I'll wait for you guys to hop on here. I have two sources up. So I have my iPad up and I have my phone up. That way, if we have any issues, then I will see it. So I was just checking on my iPad to make sure we were up on the group. And so we have several that's not going to be able to be with us tonight. I'm not sure about my sisters. They are heading home from New Jersey. So I'm not sure if they're going to catch me in the car or if they're going to catch the replay, which is okay. Either way. So I really got to get more tech savvy. Hopefully each week will be better and I will improve. But I'm on my phone tonight, so I'm hoping the comments will work tonight. So as you hop on, just tell me that you're here and say hello. And I'll give you guys a few minutes to get on here. I'm just sitting on the couch covered up in my blanket. It's been a Monday all day long. And so I'm looking forward to spending some time with you guys tonight. Make our Monday better. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to hop on. Y'all have to fill me in on how your week's been. I'm anxious to see if you guys, how you've done. Hey Tanya, I see you. It may just be me and you tonight, girlfriend. Cindy and Melinda are on their way home from Atlanta. So I know they're not going to be able to be on here, but there should be some others that are able to come. But if not, we'll just hang out together. So if you don't care, comment and let me see if I can see you. But there should be some others that are able to come. But if not, we'll just hang out together. Now I've got my iPad going. I have two sources. And let me see if I can see you. Ah, I see you. Okay, I see you on my iPad. Now I've got my iPad going. I got to see. I have two sources. And let me see if I can see. I can see you on my iPad, but okay, I see you. I don't know how to. Hang on. Let me see if I can pause because it's gonna be like. Oh, now I don't know if I can see the comments. Why does this do this to me? So it's like I can't see them on my phone. I can see them on my iPad, but I have to play the video on my iPad to see the comments. Okay, maybe it's coming in. I see hi. I see yay. And I saw that Jersey trip. Maybe we're getting somewhere. Oh, I'm so not tech savvy. The Lord is stretching me on Facebook Live. I'm telling you. All right, I see someone else just hopped on. But I can't see who you are, so you'll have to tell me hi so I can see who you are. One of these days, I'm going to figure this out. By our next book study, maybe, I'll have all the comments figured out so I don't have to do this every time. All right. The last comment I see, Tanya, is I see that Jersey trip. If we have any issues, let me check to see if that's all I'm seeing. That way, if we issues, then the last comment I see, Tanya, is I see that. Can you hear me talking in the background? I was checking my iPad to see if there were any more comments, but I don't. I just see I saw the Jersey trip. That'll be okay. So you can let me know how your week's been going. And has any of this helped this week? All right, if you're still commenting, Tanya, you may just have to text me or send me a Facebook message so I can see. The last one I'm getting is I saw that Jersey trip. And if this don't work, me and G's going to have a session so he can show me what to do. Okay, I'm getting better on the sugar, I see, but I haven't cut it completely. Me too. But I've done a lot better this week than I have. Like today, we had a little girl at the daycare whose birthday was today, and you know how it is in school. All the kids, well, they may not let y'all, being in the elementary school, especially with COVID happening, but for us, they have to bring cupcakes. And so she also brought fruit. So I had fruit and no cupcake today. So I've had nothing sweet. Well, I've had a sugar-free caramel, and that's all I've had as far as sugar goes. So I'm getting better. But I did have a strawberry, or no, it was a hot fudge sundae on the way back from Mentone yesterday. But I didn't on Saturday. So nothing sweet on Saturday. So maybe I'm cutting back from not daily to just every once in a while. But we're going to get there. We're going to make it. All right. I think I've got the comments situated. Hopefully, but I have my backup if I need to find it. But if you tell me something and it's like I'm ignoring you, send me a message and say, hey, I'm talking to you. Can you see it? That way. Yeah. I was a hero to myself. I was eating my apple slices. Hey, Sherry, I see you now. Yes, it was my anniversary. But I'm going to have to get better at thinking that I deserve it because it's a celebration. But you're right. We were celebrating our anniversary. So we had a good weekend to celebrate. So I'm glad I can see y'all. Last week, Sherry, was rough because I couldn't see when people would comment. But I think we have it situated this week. So maybe we're good to go. All right. So week 2. If you've done week 1... tell me something that really has made an impact on you, that was able to help you stay focused on what you needed to do this week. And I think for me, it was still the rich young ruler. That still just kind of, because I never looked at it that way, about where Jesus tells him, to sell all you own and come and follow me, but he didn't. He couldn't get rid of his abundance to be able to follow Jesus and do what he needed to do to be made whole. And that just keeps flashing through my mind, is that a lot of times our food is abundance and it's hard to let that go. But this week, chapter 2, replacing cravings. And so she's talking about how it's another day beyond our reason and rationality. She slides out of bed, strips everything off that might weigh even the slightest ounce, and heads to the scale. Maybe today will be the day the scale will be my friend and not reveal my secrets. And I know I could really relate to that. Could y'all relate to that? Because I know there was a period of time that I had to just really get rid of the scale, because it was a every morning weighing. Like, go to the bathroom, not a stitch of clothes on, because you don't want anything that's going to cause the scale to go up, and weighing every single morning, and then documenting if it goes up, if it goes down, and then that determining the mood for the day. And so for a little while, I did get rid of the scale. So I'd posted on the page this last week about measuring. And if you haven't measured yet, I have found through professional dieting, I like to say that I'm a professional dieter because I probably tried just about everything, that if you measure, it's a more accurate way to tell your loss than it is to jump on the scale every morning. Because the scale tends to fluctuate. It's going to fluctuate with water weight. It's going to fluctuate if you haven't been to the bathroom. There's just so many factors that determine what the scale is going to show you. But if you measure, your measuring is going to show if you've lost inches where the scale may not. So if you haven't done that yet, and I haven't done it yet, I'm going to do it tonight before I go to bed. Measure for a starting point. And then we're going to check that, well, just keep it for reference each week and take a before picture, because you can really tell more in photos and in measuring than you can in the scale. And the scale, I have found that measuring in photos gives me more peace than using the scale. Tanya, I see that you said, yes, that's me, and then I let it determine my mood. Yes, but I need something to hold me accountable. That's what we're here for. We're going to hold each other accountable, because it does affect your mood. And I've even found that I can lose weight, be super happy about it, and then I use it as an excuse to splurge. Well, I lost a couple of pounds this week, so it's okay if I have that ice cream because, see, I've lost a little bit of weight. And so I've learned it can also come back to bite me in the rump that way too. So there's many ways that the scale really can seem to trap you, but I have found that measuring in pictures works a whole lot better. And so she talks about how it's just a scenario that happens over and over. She weighs, the scale doesn't change, vow to do better. We always do that. Today's going to be a better day. We're going to make good choices today. We're going to do better today. And then go in the kitchen, and like she said, her daughter's making cinnamon rolls, and she's like, well, one won't hurt, and then that turns into two, and then that turns into three. And so it ends up being a vicious cycle because it just repeats. And then I think the big thing too is the promises for later. We can, I know I can relate to that because I think, okay, today's going to be a good day. I'm starting over today. Today's going to be good. I'm going to make good decisions. And then slip up, and then it's just a vicious cycle. And that's where it really does tend to steal our peace. And so she said, the cycle I've come to hate and feel powerless to stop continues, but who could I talk to about it? If I admit the struggle with food to my friends, they might try to hold me accountable the next time we go out to eat. And what if I'm not in the mood to be questioned about my nachos and queso with extra sour cream? Now for me, I haven't had the issue of, I've wanted my friends to hold me accountable. And I think it's because I've been bold enough to say, well, I'm just cheating today. I'll start again tomorrow. So it's not a big deal to me to talk to friends about it. But I can see definitely where we don't always tell the whole truth of what we struggle with, because we don't feel like sometimes that people struggle like we do, or that we may be the only ones feeling what we're feeling. And so sometimes it's hard to open up about that because you think that you're the only one, and people might look at you different if they see how much of a struggle food actually is. And so she goes on to say, and this is page 28. I did get the book so I could tell you guys the page number. So on page 28, she says, but I did need to make changes. I knew it, because this wasn't really about the scale or what clothing size I was. It was about this battle that raged in my heart. I thought about, craved, and arranged my life too much around food. So much so, I knew it was something God was challenging me to surrender to His control. Really surrender to the point where I'd make radical changes for the sake of my spiritual health, perhaps even more than my mental, or than my physical health. And I wanted to read that whole thing because I think that this is what has really happened to me recently. that it's more than just trying to get the number on the scale to go down, or trying to get the pant size to go down, or the waistline to go down, or feel more confident, or even thinking about Carly's wedding coming up in May and wanting to feel better about myself. Using that, as motivation to lose a few pounds. But really, I think when we just focus on the physical instead of taking care of the spiritual, that's why we're not successful with it. It's because we have to take care of the spiritual side of it. We have to take care of, like I said last week, the heart issue to be able to make the changes that we need to make. And so she said part of her surrender was asking herself a really raw question. May I ask you the same raw question? Is it possible we love and rely on food more than we love and rely on God? So type in the comments, do you think that you feel that way? Do you feel like that you rely more on food than you rely more on God? And I know that I can definitely say that I do. Oh, my son's calling. That's okay. He can call his daddy. But I do know that for me, and I feel like that I'm not the only one, and I feel like that I need, hang on, let me have Jason call Gavin. Hey, baby. I'm on the live. Will you call Gavin? He's ringing my phone over and over again. And I'm on the Facebook Live for the book studies. I don't know what he needs. If you don't mind calling him, please. But I know we tend to eat when we're happy, eat when we're celebrating, eat when we're sad, eat when we're depressed, eat when we're stressed, eat when we feel left out, eat when we're anxious. I know that's me. It's not just a happy and celebrating. It tends to go with different emotions that we're feeling. Tanya, I say yes, but this opened my eyes. I'm working on my heart and changing my thinking. And yes, bored. Yes. And also habit. Do y'all tend to just do it out of habit? I think my biggest thing with sugar and sweets at night, Tanya, I know this is something that we've discussed, is I think it's because I think after I eat I need something sweet. And it's mostly at night that happens. So I think it's just the habit. I've had the meal and I want the sweet. And so there's a lot of things there that we have to kind of turn our focus away from that habit, and turn that focus to God instead. And so she says, after asking that question, and Sherry, I saw that you put ouch. Yes, that's exactly what I felt. I was like, ouch. That was eye-opening to me too. And she says, before you throw the book across the room and curse my existence, hear me out. This question is crucial. I had to see the purpose of my struggle as something more than wearing smaller sizes and getting compliments from others. These things are nice, but not as appealing in the moment as that cinnamon roll or that chips or that brownie. It had to be about something more than just me. And then she goes on to say on page 29, I had to get honest enough to admit it. I relied on food more than I relied on God. I craved food more than I craved God. Food was my comfort. Food was my reward. Food was my joy. Food was what I turned to in times of stress, sadness, and even in times of happiness. And I kind of feel like she's reading my mail. And so she goes on down to say, is this diet thing a spiritual journey? Before picking up this book, have you ever thought that it's a spiritual journey? Have you thought that the desire to diet or to get rid of certain cravings or whatever was spiritual, or did you only look at it as physical? And you can type in the comments what you thought there. I think I have looked at it as physical, but knew there was something else to it, but wasn't really aware of what it was at certain stages in my life. And so she raises the question, do you think that God really cares about our food? And she goes on to say, yes, I think he does. As I scan the list of scriptures found at the end of this book, I do think it is an issue God takes seriously. As a matter of fact, I think it is an issue that deserves to be studied with a desire to excavate the many truths the Bible has for those struggling with unhealthy cravings. God never intended for us to want anything more than we want him. And I know, like last week, we talked about Eve in the garden and how Eve kind of gets the bad rap, and she was one that knew better, but she didn't do better. And that is what we tend to do in a lot of issues. We know better. We know the healthy choices are better for us. They make us feel better. They're better for our mindset. We feel better about ourselves. But instead, we choose to take that one moment of satisfaction over the lasting effects that would happen if we made the right decision. And I think that the craving that was given to us, it started in the garden because God wants communion with us. And I know, like studying the Old Testament and studying Scripture, God's whole purpose from Genesis on is to have communion with us. And his whole purpose for even, like, if you get into studying Leviticus and Numbers, and sometimes those books are like the last ones that we want to read because it's all about the do's and don'ts. But we fail to look at it as a way of God preparing us to be able to spend time with us, to get us into a place so that it's just us and him. And I think what he intended in the garden with the craving was so that we craved after him, and there wasn't anything else that we would struggle with, because before Eve took the fruit, we wouldn't have struggled. His purpose wasn't for his creation to struggle with anything. His purpose was for us to be with him and commune with him and just enjoy life with him. But when that happened, what we were created with in that craving, instead of us being able to fully just focus it on him, then these other things started coming in, all because of the curse and the fall of man, if that makes sense. So I think that's why it ends up being a battle in us, and that we crave so much, is because we're in a fallen world now that God didn't intend in the beginning for us to be in. It was just supposed to be about communion between us and him. And even though God knew from the very beginning that wasn't his purpose. His purpose was for us to just crave after him and not have to struggle with what we struggle with now. And so she goes on to talk about God's chosen people, the Israelites, and how they willfully put God to the test, demanding food demanding the food that they craved. And she's talking about the Israelites and how it took 40 years for them to get from exile and slavery into the promised land. And of course, Moses, bless his heart, he got stuck with a bunch of whiny people that if they didn't have food, they complained. If they didn't have water, they complained. If it wasn't the right food that they wanted, they complained. And then they decided that instead of looking at the fact that God set them free from Egypt, they were too busy using food and their lack of the food that they wanted as something that would even cause them to not believe in him. And he was the very one that set them free. And so she goes on to say what became of them. They never reached the promised land. These people wandered in the desert for 40 years, and no one but Joshua and Caleb was allowed to enter the land flowing with milk and honey. Not one. God waited until every one of them from that generation that was delivered out of Egypt died before he allowed Joshua and Caleb to lead the younger generation into the abundant life that they desired with all of their heart. So their grandchildren got to go in, or their children got to go in, but they didn't get to go in. Even Moses didn't make it to the promised land after all of that. And so she goes on to say, are we wandering about in the desert, unable to enter into the abundant life that God has for us, because we willfully put him to the test over food? And so that was another one that got me. Is, are we wandering around in the desert, unable to enter into abundant life because we willfully put God to test over food? So that was another ouch for me. And so she goes on to say, when I started, I knew this battle would be hard, harder than I ever imagined. And through it all, I determined to make God rather than food my focus. And she goes on to say on page 30 at the top, I used the craving as a prompt to pray. I craved a lot, so I found myself praying a lot. And I thought that, of course, it's something she wants us to use, but I thought, that is actually a plan. That's actually a tool that we can use when the craving comes, to use that as saying, okay, I'm craving something that I don't need, so I'm going to use this as a prompt to pray instead. And so she said it was her way of tearing down the tower of impossibility before me and the building something new. The tower of impossibility was food, and brick by brick I imagined myself dismantling the food tower and using those same bricks to build a walkway of prayer, paving the way to victory. And I really like that, because it does seem daunting when you think about it. It seems like it's almost not doable sometimes, or that maybe I'm too weak to actually do it, to actually follow through and not give in. But when we use that instead as just praying and using that as a way to tear that down, to tear that impossibility down, knowing that we can go to God and he's going to make it possible for us. And so she talks about how she would seriously cry over food, and that sometimes she would wind up on the floor of her closet praying with tears running down her face. And she said, I gave myself permission to cry just like the psalmist. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my sighing. Listen to my cry for help, my King and my God, for to you I pray. In the morning, O Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my requests before you and wait in expectation. And she said that's literally what she did. Each and every craving became another brick she could lay down on her walkway of prayer. So, and she goes on to give example. God, I want this biscuit this morning, but instead I'm eating poached eggs. I'm thankful for these eggs, but I'll be honest and say my craving for other things are hard to resist. But instead of wallowing in what I can't have, I'm making the choice to celebrate in what I can have. So she goes on and she's like, it's 10 p.m. I'm craving again. I want the snack crackers. They're literally screaming my name. But instead of reaching for those crackers, I'm praying. I'll be honest. I don't want to pray. I want the crackers. But instead, I'm going to have a handful of almonds, and brick by brick, prayer by prayer, lay a path for victory. And then she goes on and talks about, she's going with her friends. And I did too, Tanya. I love that part too. And she's talking about Mexican food, and that instead of giving in because it's been a tough day, she's choosing to pray instead of getting stuck in her craving. Help me, God, to feel satisfied with healthy Yes, Sherry, I just got your comment. That's what I thought too. I'm going to be praying all day long. Me and the good Lord are going to be like this. Because I'm going to be praying from the time I get up to the time I go to bed. But she says, help me, Lord, to feel satisfied with healthier choices. And that's how my prayers continue throughout the day, laying my requests before God, and like the psalmist says, waiting in expectation. And then she says, and this is what kind of gives me hope too, is that one morning it finally happened. I got up, and for the first time in a long time, I felt incredibly empowered. I still did the same crazy routine with the scale. No clothes, no ponytail holder, but I only stepped on it once. The numbers hadn't changed yet, but my heart had. One day, a victory tasted better than any of the food that I given up ever could. I had waited in expectation using prayer as my guide, and I did it. I did it that day and the next and the next. And then she says, well, why not for 4 victorious days in a row? So basically, it's taking it one day at a time and being able to add up the days where you resisted the temptation and turned to God instead. And she says, I can't promise that the scale magically drops as quickly as you wish it would. It probably won't. But it will be a start, a really good start. And so that kind of gave me hope too, because I do think that when you do resist more, the easier it becomes. And like she said in chapter 1, the more healthy choices you make, the stronger you are in being able to make the healthy choices and being able to deny the things that are not good for you. And so I'm going to read through the personal reflections real quick and see if there's something we want to bring out right now. Alright, and I think that pretty much just recapped the chapter. But I did want to bring up and I will, like I said, I'll post the participant guides questions. That way, if you don't have the participant's guide, that you'll have it. But there were parts in the participant's guide too that I wanted to bring out that I thought was really powerful. And let me find where she gets to it. She talks about how a lot of times we can put ourselves in situations where we feel desperate. Like if we wait, if you watch the video, this is brought out in the video, in which if you haven't been able to watch it yet, it is posted on the page. But she's talking about making a plan. And basically planning out what you're going to eat. She said, because a lot of times we'll record as we eat. And we'll check off each meal, not really knowing what we're going to eat until we get into it. And she actually suggests starting the day out, knowing what you're going to eat for each meal, having it planned out, having all the healthy choices shopped for and ready for you. And she says that way you're prepared and you're planning first thing in the morning. And I thought about, meal planning. A lot of people meal plan. And how that really is a good idea, because there's no guessing what you're going to have. You already know what you're going to have. It's already planned out for you. And you don't have to make those decisions as the day goes on. Because sometimes things can happen during the day that changes your good intentions. And that's usually what happens to me. I have good intentions, but it's either I've gotten busy and I'm super hungry, so instead of wanting to fix what I need to fix, I just want to grab something quick or something that it's not as good for me just because it's more convenient. And let's see, I see Tanya. Yes, I love the videos. So if you're not watching the videos, I hope that you do. And I'm not seeing all your comment, Tanya. It's not letting me click on the see more. But I see that you said that you've written down what you've eaten during the day and that you do meal plan on Joey's work days. And I need to do better but I'm not seeing the bottom part of that. But meal planning is like, I may have an idea of what I'm going to do as far as I'm concerned, but having each meal planned out is something that I haven't done. But I think that that is a good thing to do, because she talks about if you get to the point that you're feeling desperate for food or desperate to make a choice in what you're going to eat, that tends to breed defeat. And then she brought out the story of Jacob and Esau, which is in Genesis 25:27 through 34. And basically, see, Jacob and Esau are sons of Isaac and Rebekah. Esau is the oldest son, Jacob the youngest. And back in those days, the oldest child is the one who basically got the blessing or the inheritance from the parents. It was passed down to the firstborn son, which in this case was Esau. So in this situation, Jacob is inside. He's the youngest son. He's making lentil stew. And Esau is basically, he's been out in the fields or doing whatever. So he comes in and he's extremely hungry. And if you study out if you actually read the story of Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Esau, you can kind of tell that Esau is a little more fleeting. He doesn't really care about things or take things as seriously as Jacob does. And basically, Jacob was Isaac's favorite, but Jacob is, hang on, let me start over. Esau is Isaac's favorite. Jacob is Rebekah's favorite. And so basically, he comes in. He sees that Jacob is making this stew, and he's hungry. He just says, give me some of the stew. Well, Jacob is clever in that moment because he really wants the birthright. And so he says, okay, sell me your birthright for this bowl of stew. And Esau does it. He says, okay, you can have my birthright just for a bowl of stew. And so, and it goes on to where, there's just, really more to the story. Actually, Rebekah, because Isaac is old and he can't see well, and they actually put this plan in place where Jacob does get Isaac's blessing instead of Esau. And because of his moment of desperation and being hungry, he sells his birthright. And so I wrote down in that Esau was so desperate for temporary pleasure that he sold his birthright. And then I put underneath it, how many times do we see our health and our peace? How many times do we sell our health? Let me say that again. How many times do we sell our health and our peace for temporary pleasure? And that's something that is just as important as a birthright. A healthy body and a peaceful mind. And we sell it for a piece of cake or a cupcake. I could have done that today. I could have had the cupcake and sold my peace and my health for a cupcake, knowing that I didn't need it. Which, thank the Lord, I didn't. I was strong today. Sherry, I forget to take lunch to work sometimes. Those public bakery donations, sweets and breads for the residents and staff. And I'm sorry, y'all, it's not letting me get the whole comment. But Sherry, I'm assuming that it's hard to resist those when you hadn't planned. And I would be the same way, because we both know how we are about the carbs and the sweets, and it's hard to resist that, especially when you have it in your hands and you're having to give it to someone else and you want to partake of it too. And so and in the video I did too, I like the bucket analogy. Oh, good, Sherry. So we both did good today. I like the bucket analogy where she shows the holes of the bucket and asks which hole you should patch first. And she asks the question, how do you relate your efforts to weight loss and healthy eating to the bucket with the holes in it? And when I thought about that, I thought all of our goals and our dreams pour out when we leave holes in our heart that causes us to make choices that are not good for us. We're basically allowing our goals and our dreams to seep out those holes because we're not making good decisions in what we eat. And so I believe that was basically what we had for chapter 2. So comment to me, what was your biggest ouch in chapter 2? What was something that you just really thought that is me, and was really eye-opening to you? I think mine was the Isaac and the Esau moment. Is because I've read that story, and I guess it's like the rich young ruler too, because you read the Bible stories and she has a way to make it really relate to something that we're dealing with in this moment. You know, like the rich young ruler was his riches. That's not something I have to worry about. But it is the abundance of food that I have to choose to lay down so that I can be made whole in Christ. And then with Jacob and Esau, is how many times are we so desperate for that moment of satisfaction that we sell our health and our peace for it? Tanya, yes, like how we say we're starving to death. Let's be realistic. We're not going to die. Yes. Yes. I had that moment this weekend. So our trip to Mentone started off a little bit rocky because Jason and I had been in the car for 3 hours, which is good, which is fine. I love him to death and we love spending time together, and that wasn't the issue. But by the time we had got to Mentone, I have to pee all the time. It's like I can pee on demand. So by the time we get there, there's really not a place to go to the bathroom. And so by this time, we've been on the road for 3 hours. I had ate breakfast like 2 hours before Jason did, before we left. So by this time, I'm pushing 5.5 hours, and I'm hungry, and I have to pee. And so I literally felt like I was starving to death, and I literally bit Jason's head off. Because if you've been to Mentone, they're not really set up with bathrooms very well there either. But he was nice. He drove around. He found me a bathroom. And then after that, we were okay. I ended up planning ahead. I had a granola bar. So I ate the granola bar, got the bathroom, and I was feeling much better. And so it ended up, things got better for us. But it's funny how feeling like we're starving to death really changes. I know it does me. It changes my mood. It makes me ill and grouchy. I get hangry very quick. And Sherry, you said my takeaway is to dismantle my cravings brick by brick. There's no quick fix. And yes, that's true, because when you look at the whole picture of it, it can be overwhelming. And so when you think of it as that way, and I love that she, yes, hangry. And I love that she gave us the tool. Because like she said in chapter 1, we can have the tools of whatever diet that we're going to follow. And we all know pretty much what to do to lose weight. And that's something that she brought up in the video too. We know to exercise, to move more, and to eat less. So you have to burn more calories than you put into your body. And so we know that. There's not anything about dieting that I don't think we know over and under and have tried a million ways. But it's having the want to make better choices. It's having the want to draw closer to God too. And say, I'm not going to sacrifice my relationship with God over this cupcake. And so I like that she gave that tool to pray. Anytime there's a craving, pray. Yes, Weight Watchers for the 4th time. Yes, I understand, Sherry. I've done Weight Watchers too, multiple times. And it's worked every time I've done it if I stuck with it. But I think the hardest part with sticking with it is we haven't been given the tools to deal with the spiritual side of it, with the heart side of it. We're given the tools to deal with the dieting side of it, what to eat, what to do, but we haven't been given the tools for the spiritual side of it. So I'm glad that that is what we're doing now, is we're learning the tools to take care of here. And I think I'm more excited about having the peace at the end of the day, regardless of what the scale says. But if we make the choices we're supposed to, it's going to reflect in that too. So this week, we're going to be praying a lot, which is good. That's a good thing. And we're going to be strong and make good choices and turn our cravings into prayer instead of giving into it. So did y'all have any questions about anything for this week? Anything that you want me to go into a little bit more, discuss a little bit more before we jump off from week 2? And I'm learning along with you guys. So if something jumps out to y'all that y'all are getting out of this that I haven't brought out, just share it with the rest of us, because we're all learning from each other and we're all being accountable with each other too. So I'm excited about that too. So did y'all have anything y'all wanted me to go into a little bit more? Any questions about anything? I'll give you guys a minute to make sure you're not typing. I'm just so glad to be a part of a great group. I'm loving Mondays now. I'm glad you joined us, Tanya. I love spending time with you. You're so far away, but we get to be together on Monday nights, and that makes me happy. And I'm glad y'all joined me. I'm not much of a teacher as far as doing a book study. This is the first one, and so y'all get to be my guinea pigs. Sherry, I'll try to be better prepared next week. I forgot what I read. Well, that was the big thing, being prepared. Being prepared so you're not put in desperate situations without having a plan. And yes, it is a process, but we'll make it. And I'm excited to see at the end how well we all do. Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Sherry. Of course, you have to think I'm amazing. I'm your baby sister. Well, I love you guys very much. And I will post the questions that's in the participants guide too. Do you guys have the participants guide? I'm not really sure who needs it or who don't, but I'll make sure to post it anyway, just in case someone didn't get it that needs it. But before we go, I'm going to pray for us. And then feel free to discuss more in the comments. I'll be around and checking everything. I'll make sure to post it, Tanya. That way everybody will have access to it. But so we'll pray before we go. And then we will comment, talk back and forth this week in the group. But I'm going to pray for us real quick before we say goodnight. So, Lord, I thank you for my sisters that have joined me here tonight and those that will be watching the replay. Lord, I thank you that you're giving us the tools through this book that we need to take care of that missing link that we haven't always had. And that missing link is turning our hearts back to you where it deserves to be and belongs to be, or needs to be. Where you've created us, that we should crave after you instead of food or something that's just a temporary satisfaction, because it's only through you that we can find complete wholeness. And so, Lord, I thank you that you will be with us this week, that you'll help us to have a plan in place for what we need to do based on our needs and our bodies that can take care of this issue of cravings, this issue of weight, the issue of being unhealthy, and most of all, the issue of not being content inside ourselves. that you're helping to silence that battle that we deal with every single day when it comes to food or when it comes to how we feel about ourselves. And Lord, that you'll just help us to remember who we are in you, that we are not failures, but that we are successful, that we're victorious, and that we're strong and we're capable and that we can do this. And most of all, that we're well loved by you and that there's no mistake that you've ever made in creating us. And that this craving that's been inside of us that we've warred with for far too long was not a mistake. It was just something that was misguided. And I thank you that you're helping us to guide that back to you where it belongs. So I thank you that when we're happy, we look to you. When we're sad, can look to you. When we're stressed, we can look to you. When we're anxious, we can look to you. Whatever we face this week, that there's nothing that will happen or take place that we cannot bring to you and that you won't take care of, because you are truly the only one that satisfies. So I thank you for each of my sisters. I pray that you just wrap them up in a big hug tonight and give them an extra special one for me. And I thank you for the blessing of this group and for bringing us closer together and building a community that's able to support each other, some of us in ways we haven't ever had. And I love you, Lord, for all that you are. I thank you that you're good and that you're faithful in all things. And I thank you for the victory that you're giving us and that you're bringing us to through this study. In your name, I pray. Amen. So I love you guys so much. I hope you all have a good rest of the night. I'll be checking in on the comments, so just comment away. Anything you want to talk about, I'm here. And I hope and pray that you guys have a good, fantastic rest of the week. I love you all. Good night.